Welcome back to Good Morning Kenya. Just to remind you that today is a very special day for the country. Of course, students are taking their first examination in the next 1 hour, so to speak. In the next, at 8:30, they'll be starting with their first paper. We have almost around 3 million students starting the examination this morning. We have got KCPE and KPSEA, exactly, grade 6, and of course the class 8 students being part of the CBC, which is going to be quite instrumental even as we try to remodel the education calendar and the system as we are. Okay, currently we have got 3,416,048 being the total number of students sitting the examination. Now, this is one of the biggest numbers in the recent past, and of course, it will be starting today, running through a better part of this week. Is going to be a busy week, of course. This comes even at the backdrop of the Presidential Working Committee trying to get the hits and misses on the CBC program. And of course, we will be wishing all the candidates the very best in their national examination. It's going to be a test for the Cabinet Secretary, that is CS Machogu, on how he's going to handle this examination, coming up with the backdrop of cases of exam cheating and irregularities. How he's going to handle it, some would say that it's going to be his first test. And of course, we cannot miss to talk about that even as we get into the real politics of the day. And in studio, I have got engineer Chrispus Wathimba joining me in studio. Engineer, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
Karibu
sana.
Just
dropped my son who is doing the CBC exam.
Oh, yes.
And I just want to wish all the candidates all the best.
Yes.
And especially where my son is at Seedling Junior School. I wish them all the best.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage parents that with the new CBC curriculum, it's now about competence. It's
exactly.
not about just academia and all that. So whatever your child will be able to achieve in terms of this examination, build on that. Don't judge them as harshly because maybe they did not meet your expectation, but carry on with whatever they have, and it will shape them. We have seen when the CSs were being vetted.
Yes.
Some of them were professors, some of them had D. But they are all cabinet secretaries today, serving this government. So it does not matter what outcome they
all is not lost.
All is not lost.
Yeah.
Your child has an opportunity out there.
And if anything, you've just reminded me, in the good book, everyone has a talent.
Exactly.
And that is inborn.
Exactly.
So an education is the part of literacy that human beings that we have to go through. But God gave each and every person a talent.
There is the inherent talent that you have that cannot be taken away from you. Knowledge is acquired from one environment to the other. So if I don't have the kind of knowledge you have, it doesn't make me lesser being than you. But in the kind of talent I have makes me unique to you and any other person.
Let's look at this number, 3 million. This is a big number, and of course, students sitting the first examination, the first on its kind, the first cohort of the CBC, the grade 6, now the competency based. It's not going to be out of the 100%, but this is going to be out of 40%. Now the remaining 60 is going to be based on the competency in class and the way you answer questions and the talent. Perhaps, how do you think it's going to turn out after the marking and the results are now completely out?
Already, the 60% has already been assessed.
Yes.
It's already in the portal. So a child is able to know, I've achieved this much. So what you're looking for is a 40%. Out of what you'll achieve today, whether you get 90 out of 100, it will constitute the 40% that you're working
right.
on. So the opportunity that comes with this kind of assessment is that even if there are any challenges that will happen today, tomorrow, and the next day, your child's fate is not defined by one event. Unlike in other cases where the KCP and KCSE is all about one moment, one period, 1 week or 1 month. In this case, already most of the children have already been assessed for the last 2-3 years. And therefore, they already have a milestone. 60% of what they need to achieve has already been assessed. They have already gone through that path. All they are looking for is 40%. So therefore, no matter how the exam may come out for any child, they are already winners one way or another. So it's not a very punitive...
You make it sound so easy, but the whole CBC process looked so hard even for the parents to comprehend.
What I would say is the CBC is not very hard. it's a bit taxing. It's a bit more involving.
Yeah.
It's one of those curriculum that requires intentional parenting. That you as a parent, you must be intentional in terms of you support your child academic achievements. In terms of the competence a child have, how do you realize them?
Yeah.
How do you, what are the signals that you may want to look out for to know what competence your child has? For example, if your child is in love with music or is good in swimming. My son is very good at chess, but it took me an intention and effort
to realize that. Yes.
And I also had to go further and invest in terms of time and resources to nurture that interest that child has. So unless you're committed to support CBC as a parent, you will think it is very taxing.
Exactly.
But you must be intentional. That's the most important thing.
I like the way you put it. And perhaps this is going to be calling on the kind of parenting that's going to be we are going to have moving forward, because education is the equalizer.
Yes.
Education is the equalizer. But Engineer, before we take a break, let me just introduce Hamisi Mboka, who is joining me via Zoom all the way from Mombasa. Hamisi, good morning. Good to have you once again. All right. Or it seems you're not getting Hamisi. Hamisi, we'll get back to you shortly. Engineer, there is this bit of the pioneer class. There was that question of, should they remain in primary school or they just transit to the next junior secondary school? And part of the recommendation that we've had from the Presidential Working Committee is that they're still young. They need to remain in primary school. Let them get nurtured. Let them get through the process first before they get into junior secondary school. I don't know, what's your take when you look at your son?
What I would say,
yes,
looking at my sons and his classmates, they are quite young. So therefore, in my opinion, let the junior high school be domiciled within the primary school.
Right.
So in terms of the psychological approach we can do in terms of giving them a transition, change the uniform so that this child can feel they are a bit different from the rest of the crowd. Because already we have given them this idea that you are transiting from grade 6, which is a primary school, to a junior high school. And therefore, to give them that credence that you are now different from the rest,
just change
the uniform, so that they look different from the other. But in terms of the physical space, let them occupy the same space. You can change your child maybe to another primary school, that's okay, but the child is still within that group of young children.
Exactly.
So in terms of the bullying element or fear or anxiety they may have, is minimized.
Exactly.
But if you take them to high school, where the crowd is a bit mature, is a bit rough, just to say politely,
the culture shock is real.
Is really.
All right. Engineer, let's take a break. When you come back, we're still going to talk more about this examination and, if possible, also connect with our reporters on the ground. In the next 30 minutes, the exam will kick off, and of course, we'll also be connected with Hamisi Mboka all the way from Mombasa via Zoom. Let's take a break. When you come back, GMK continues.
Thank you. Values.
Yes. All right. Welcome back. With me in studio is Engineer Chrispus Wathimba. Hamisi Mboka joining me shortly via Zoom. If we have him, we're still talking about matters examination, and of course, 3 million, over 3.4 million kids will be starting the examination in the next 20 or so minutes. And of course, we wish them all the best. Engineer, before we continue, before we bring in Hamisi Mboka, we talk about the issue of parental in terms of going back in the past and now the current level of parenting that we have right now. It's more connecting both parents and the kids, because now you'll be forced to be in the life of that kid to find out whether he or she has done the homework given by the teachers.
Exactly.
So this will continue, perhaps.
Actually, this curriculum, the reason why some parents are finding it challenging is because they had become digital parents, meaning I'm in office, I can do a video call to my child, check if the homework has been done, tell the house help, can you help the child to do homework, send the same to somebody to check, and you're not there.
Yeah.
But this kind of CBC program is forcing you to participate actively in terms of raising that child. And therefore, things like the values we miss as a country of honesty, of ethics, we will now be able to inculcate them in our children.
Yes.
If the president is talking about us being responsible citizens, paying our taxes, your child will ask you, what is this issue about paying taxes? Because the CBC program is teaching that.
Exactly.
Then you as a parent, you'll be able to demonstrate.
Yes.
On your bill, we bought sugar today and it had taxes.
Yeah.
Me as an employee of a government, this is my payroll. I pay taxes. So therefore, this child will grow up knowing there are certain values as a Kenyan citizen you must hold. Elements of patriotism will be easily inculcated. One of the challenges we have as a country is that we have lost values. We don't have proper national values.
Yeah.
10%, 30% of our news in the morning is about corruption and violence. And domestic issues.
Yeah.
So we need to remove that so that a parent is there to help a child understand the issues. Yes, you see corruption in news, but the parent is intentional, is active, is able to tell the child, this is wrong, this is what you need to aspire for as a person.
Yeah. All right. Let me just give you a figure here. Some of the figures that we have currently. We have got 3,416,048 total number of students sitting the examination. There's a breakdown. We have got total primary school candidates is 2,531,785. The number of class standard 8 candidates stand at 1,231,785. The number of grade 6 candidates is 1,287,597. And of course, NEC has availed 242,406 invigilators to oversee this examination. And the grade 6 exam, as you correctly put it, will constitute of 40% of total score.
Exactly.
All right. And then the remaining, the grade 4, 5, and 6 school-based assessment make up to remaining 60%. And of course, the assessment has been happening over the years. So it's just that the final rubber stamp of the assessment that we are going to be doing in the final examination. The
test is now, did your school do the right job in terms of putting that assessment in the portal? There's already a portal where all these assessments are supposed to be placed by the respective schools.
Yes.
So if your school failed to do that, then you failed your pupils. But the responsibility of the child to do that work has already been passed. The work was given by the ministry, do this, assess this child this way, and then once you've done that assessment, put it in the portal so that it can all be assessed overall.
This sounds like a real test for the CBC, so that at the end of the day, the government will clearly see that, okay, fine, this is what we did over the years.
Yes.
The CBC was... it started that this particular year, the assessment took place, and then the final exam
is this one.
But then now the final exam now, perhaps the government should wait and see. So this is the results. This is now how CBC has happened and the assessment of the students. So as even the government trying to tighten and fix the loose ends on the CBC curriculum, perhaps this should be part of the marking scheme.
Definitely there'll be, because remember, not all children are playing on the same field.
No.
There are kids where some of the facilities are not there. And therefore you cannot measure them as equal as others. And therefore the government has to be very intentional in terms of how they assess each child. Each child assessment will be very unique in the way that if you can see the kind of projects this person was able to do during grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6 will also reflect in the quality of the exam outcome this time around. And therefore, that child has to be assessed in a very unique manner. Children in northeastern Kenya today, they are going through hunger. You cannot subject them to the same kind of assessment as a child here in Nairobi, where he's being dropped to school, he has all the facilities, and therefore it's important that the government is very sensitive to each child's case.
Yes. Most of us went through the old system, actually the current one, now the 844 system. Look at the comparison, take the comparison between the CBC and the 844. What would you make as a comparison? Well,
CBC, people need to understand, CBC is not 844.
No.
What we have 844 can be measured with the 2633.
Yes.
So CBC is a philosophy where you look at the competence of the child. It's not heavily knowledge-based. Whereas 844 at the beginning was both competence and knowledge-based. But as we progressed, the focus became more on the knowledge. Who has got A, who has got B, who has got C, who has got D. We forgot about the competence part. So what we are doing is that we are revisiting where we started, where the competence was the main thing. And therefore the knowledge was just an addition to that. We are trying to balance. Today, the biggest companies in the world are tech companies. Most of them were founded by people who don't even finish their graduate education. And therefore, because they had competence, but the system was a bit easy for them to progress without even having acquired full knowledge.
Yes.
But they had the competence, they were given an opportunity. In Kenya, it's all about academic. You must have a degree, having a master's is an advantage. But then these people, some of them don't even need the master. They don't even need the degree. They are very good at what they do without even that kind of education. All they need is a competence. I am into engineering, and majority of my workers, I have trained them at the field because I've realized they have the ability to acquire the certain skills easily as compared to some people who have gone to school. And therefore, it's all about realizing each person's ability, skills, competence, and being able to nurture them.
Yes.
And that's what CBC is doing.
And that's what CBC is all about. You know, my director is saying that we have to talk about Olunga, Michael Olunga. He's an engineer like you.
Yes.
But he's playing football, and that's what pays his bills.
Exactly. I have a young man in Nakuru. He was admitted to go and do civil engineering.
Yes.
But the young man at the first year, he got tired. He's very good in art. He can take a picture of you in a pencil and draw you. And he told me, you know, I gave up. There was no passion in engineering. My passion was in art. And that is able to pay him today. Yes. Because he was able to realize his talent, and he was given the environment by parents and people to support that talent, and he was able to nurture it. So therefore, we need to be able to have a system where we can be able to identify each child's competence and talent and be able to nurture it.
Absolutely.
And that's why people are saying it's a bit expensive. My son is in chess.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap game.
No, it's not.
Every month we have to do tours in Eldoret, in Mombasa, in wherever. It costs us money and it costs us time. But that is the cost of nurturing that competence.
At the end of the day, you're looking at the end result because you're impacting the competence in that child.
Exactly.
He'll tell you, Daddy, you know, for me, you told me to do medicine. I'm not interested in medicine. I want chess. And he'll be looking at international players who are making, you know, international arena in the chess. And he'll be like them. Perhaps books will just be something of the past. I don't know.
Books are an added advantage.
I like this conversation because all of us went through class.
Yeah.
But there is that inborn thing that all of us must inculcate. Mine is about drama, arts, and theater.
Yeah.
I actually say that is the cigarette that I smoke.
Yes.
Everywhere I am, you'll find me writing a poem or writing a script or whatever it is. During examination, the corona pandemic, that kids did not go for drama festivals, I suffered. I have to say that I suffered.
Because you could not...
I could not write my scripts and directing kids and all that.
Yeah.
Let's look at the number of the students who are going to sit the examination, and perhaps this is going to be one of the biggest tests for the new CS. Of course, he's taking over from CS Magoha, who was hands-on, the issue of irregularities, exam cheating. What do you think the CS Machogu now is waiting at his desk in his office and seeing, okay, students are sitting the examination, irregularities are here, we have got examination cartels here, which CS Magoha really tried to crash, and perhaps he's still scratching his head somewhere.
I think I sympathize with CS Machoga, given that, number one, he doesn't have a substantive PS to help him to navigate this issue, because the current PS knows he's already leaving. And therefore, the team that is supposed
to... So he wants to take responsibility the other way.
The team that is supposed to help Machogi is not yet in office. And therefore, he's there alone with a team of civil servants whose loyalty he may not be very sure all about. Because he needed to have his PSs and reorganize the ministry, put his house in order, and therefore guide in terms of coming out with an assessment, a proper assessment of these 3.4 million children. And therefore, for him, he will really rely on the support of the president and in marshalling the entire team of the ministry to give the best outcome. You remember, this CBC was born by Matiang'i.
Yes.
And then he handed it over to Magoha, whom they had worked together when he was the chair of the National Examination Council. And therefore, they really carried on the business of CBC passionately. Machoge is just coming in as a minister, maybe a month or two into the examination of the 3.4 million children. He's probably not yet settled down very well to understand the issues at the ministry. And therefore, I see a test, not just for Machoge, but for the hustler government, in terms of how they will be able to carry the dreams and aspirations of these hustlers. These are the hustlers who will vote for them in 2032 and 2037.
Yes.
And therefore, if they kill their dreams, it will be very painful. 2027, a lot of these young people are the ones who are going to elect William Ruto if he wants to be re-elected. And therefore, he must be able to carry and protect their dreams and aspirations through this assessment. If he cannot afford to kill any of those children's dreams. And therefore, this administration has a responsibility in terms of messaging, in terms of executing the work, and in terms of the outcome of this assessment. And even the task force that is already in place.
Yes.
Whatever message it will communicate, it has to be a message that does not kill the dreams and aspirations of these young men.
When you talk of the skills and aspirations and the dreams, this is the number is big, so to speak. And we'd expect the facilities, the government saying that, you know, the former CS said that everything, the classes had been built in different parts of the country. But when you walk around, you'd see some kind of, you know, not well preparedness in terms of how this is going to be a transition from this generation to the next one in terms of students. What do you think could now cost this government to ensure that, yes, the exam is done, we have got 3.4 million doing the examination, and they need to transit nonetheless?
As I said earlier, instead of moving children physically from one school to the other, let the kids remain in that school. Remember, if you take this CBC class to a high school, you already have one classroom that is vacant, that they should have occupied. These kids are supposed to go to class 7, and the one in class 7 goes to class 8. If this class 6 don't go to class 7, that space physically is vacant.
Yes.
Because if they go to high school, that's where you create a deficit. So let these kids remain in the primary schools, so that already we have enough space within the primary schools to be occupied by those CBC class 6, grade 6, going to junior high school, which is grade 7. But if you move them to a secondary school physically, there'll be a deficit. So if they allow them to remain to be domiciled within the primary school, there'll be no problem of physical space.
Yes.
The challenge will be the psychological impact to that child that you are told you are transiting. So how do we manage that transition?
Yes.
Change uniform, change naming of the class, so that these children feel they are different from the other. They could be the mature crop within that school, so that they feel different. But if you want to take them physically to another school, there might be some challenges, because if you take, for example, where there were 4 streams, now you need to add another one so that these kids can occupy. There'll be a challenge.
Welcome back. Of course, the examination starting today. If anything to go by, exactly 8:31, so which means that as by the time, all the students should be sitting in their respective classrooms across the country to start writing their papers. Now, engineer, let's talk about the issue of the scramble to have a slot in quote-unquote bigger schools and national schools. This one saw so many teachers and examination cartels, which the government used to call them, to participate in examination cheating and irregularities. But this one somehow is going to change the shift in terms of no one is going to rush to get higher marks to join a national school. It's all about you and your competence.
Yes.
Do you think this is going to change the perception in terms of how to overcrowd the so-called good schools, big schools, national schools?
You know, good schools were defined by academic excellence. Have they been measured with competence excellence? That's the question. Has any of those students from those good schools come out with the best competence that we are measuring today?
Yes.
That is the question we need to answer. None of them has been. So every school is equal today based on the competence of the child. And therefore, any space you'll occupy, which is called a school, and you can be able to nurture your competence,
yes,
can be as good as the other. What may be different is probably the amenities. Do you have the laboratories?
Yes.
Do you have the workshop? Do you have the facilities to be able to nurture that competence? But the kind of teachers who will nurture that competence also raises the question, because most of the good schools have been with good teachers who are very good with academics.
Yes.
You know, what we call drilling.
Yes.
Forcing you to understand, you know, English history, weather of America, those kind of things. Are they able now to tell you, take this paper, mold it into a car? Are they able to tell you, take this gadget, make an ICT program that can hack into a bank or something? Those are the questions we need to ask. We are now transitioning these children from a competence-based curriculum at the primary level to, say, a junior high school.
Yeah.
Are the people receiving on the other end able to now grow the talents now that we have discovered, or the competence that we have, of the skills that have already been planted into them? Those are the questions. Therefore, the question of good schools is now out there. It's out for the jury. Every school has an opportunity to define whether it's a good school.
Okay.
By now investing in the facilities.
My director is asking me to ask you that which school did you go to?
I went to Moi Primary in Nakuru and Menengai High School in Nakuru.
Yes.
Yes. And if I go to that school today, it's not the same way I left that time.
Yeah.
Because I remember at Menengai High School, we had even workshops for mechanical students. We have rooms and woodworks and all that. Today, those facilities are not there. But you may find a school somewhere in some rural area which already has those facilities, and therefore it may make a very good carpenter, a very good mason, a very good ICT person, because it already has invested in those facilities, as opposed to maybe Alliance or Kenya High, where they have invested in the academia, which is not what we are looking for right now. So the question of good school is now going to, people are going to define themselves. There are new schools which are coming up, which have even invested in teaching kids how to fly planes, in music, in ICT, because that's where the competence will be able to thrive. Yes.
When you look at the issue of financing from the government now to facilitate the process of getting the facilities in schools and building the classrooms, teacher training, stocking the different classrooms, the government says that a bigger chunk of the revenue goes to education. And when you have got these classes, class now grade 6 and class 8 now, and you have got the next cohort of the new system of education coming on board, perhaps now this one will have to go back to the exchequer to cough more.
This is one of the most difficult things that Kenya needs to accept.
Yes.
That education is not going to be cheap anymore. It's going to be very expensive.
Okay.
And therefore, if you're going to place this burden on the government, who you are, you know, the government is me and you.
Exactly.
Through our tax contribution.
Yes.
And therefore, if you say government will pay, it means we'll have to be taxed more, or more people will have to pay taxes. And therefore, the question of the hustler nation coming on board to contribute to the tax base is very important. And that's why it's important to support the Ruto administration in terms of paying taxes.
Yes. Now, Engineer, from the look of things, all systems go for the students in Kisumu. Let's talk about the issue of the students embracing CBC. On the side of teachers and the parents, it was a hard nut to crack. But for kids, for them it was more of fun. This perhaps is not so hard for them, because, you know, for a kid, whatever you give them, that's exactly what they'll consume. So it was on the side of the parents and the teachers because of lack of preparedness. The old system of doing things, then all of a sudden things changed. But for a kid, you tell them, fold this one into a boat, into a car, that's exactly what a kid will do. So perhaps teachers and parents should embrace more of CBC moving forward to make it even easy for the kids to accept it.
From my own experience, actually, is that the CBC program was not very taxing for the child. Actually, it was a very good thing for the child, because they would be able to demand your parents' presence in their work. They would tell you, Daddy, we have been told we need to do this with you. And there you have no option but to participate actively. So the challenge came now when it came to doing the exams, preparing them for the exam. There was a lot of confusion. Will they do choices? Will there be multiple choices? Will be open-ended questions?
Yeah.
Will they need to scribble on an answer sheet? Those kind of issues that came about. But overall, the 3 years from grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6, it was very easy for the children because they were able, the parents were actively involved. The participation of the parent was demanded of, and therefore they were forced to help their children in doing their work. And that helped to alleviate the weight or the burden that comes with schooling in Kenya. But the last few days where there was a bit of confusion in how the examination would be carried out, there I felt a bit of strain on the children. There was too many exams being sent to them to prepare. They felt as if this thing is a bit, there was a bit of anxiety.
Exactly.
That was the crowd of anxiety that came over the children, especially the last 2 weeks. But before that, all was very well. For me, the exciting part was the fact that parenting was changed in a way that we look at our relationship between school and being a parent at home.
Yes.
Where your child would come with schoolwork and you'd be forced to participate in that work. And you would see where there are challenges. You could also, you could also be tested.
Exactly.
And then you would ask yourself, how was I taught this thing? I don't want to confuse my child. Can you go back to your teacher? He teaches you or she teaches you the way they understand best, because I don't want to confuse you.
Yes.
Those kind of discussions were there. The conversation between the parent and the child became very intellectual, very skill-based, very knowledgeable. Kids became very curious on issues. For example, when they were being taught about social studies and the county government and the MCAs and the wards and all those things. So they were very interactive. And what is very good is that they are doing an exam during an election year. So a lot of these things that came about in terms of governance, they were able to see them
and to grasp and translate. All right, I'm going to give you last word because I'm told we are running out of time. Okay. Your son is sitting an examination. You'll have all the rights to wish him all the best on national television and of course the benefit of doing that, of course, all the students sitting the examination across the country as a parent and somebody who's also going through classroom, you can take that opportunity to run with it.
Thank you so much. I just want to wish all the students sitting out for the exam the very best, and especially the kids at Seedlings Junior, where my son Bradley is sitting for the exam. I wish them the very best. But I also want to pray for the administration to really carry out this process very well and protect children from any challenges that may be brought about by mismanagement. Wish them very well, and thank you so much for having this opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That
is indeed Chrispus Wathimba talking to us matters education. 3.4 million students sitting the examination, which has already started, and we wish them all the best here on KBC Channel 1. We all went through examination. You have to do your best. All right. That's why we wrap it up on today's Eye on Politics, but we've gone education direction. Very good. Let's take a break. GMK continues after this. Good morning.